He had a special talent for doing special things.
Oh, it's a goal! It's a useful cross. Sinclair. Only dropped to Beckham! Every goal he scores is an absolute beauty.
I don't think you could ever underestimate the ability of what David Beckham had.
David Beckham's work rate on a football pitch was fantastic.
Beckham again, looks for the chip. Oh, what a goal!
Fantastic cross off the ball.
One of the best crosses of all time. I mean, everyone's tried to copy him since.
But there was no bigger star. David Beckham was a star.
Trying to get a goal for United now, and get a goal he does.
David Beckham broke into the Manchester United ranks alongside a crop of teammates who had won the FA Youth Cup in 1992. They were a special group who helped establish the club's 20-year dominance of the Premier League.
Neville, Bot Scholes, Beckham, Giggs. This team, this group of young players, was all anyone around the club would talk about.
Beckham getting it through. Here's Cole. And now Sharp.
Oh, it's a goal! Beckham has scored out of absolutely nothing, and Manchester United have regained their lead.
I mean, I first remember him when he played in, it was a tournament, the under-21s always played in Le Tournois, and I interviewed him by the swimming pool at the hotel they were staying in. Years later, I thought, I interviewed this lad, and you just couldn't have seen what was to come.
You got a very distinct impression of a fairly shy, very quietly spoken, but very determined.
It wasn't like a young Ryan Giggs, where I think from a very young age that people knew something special was coming through the ranks here.
And in fairness, you have to point out that it wasn't just the six that made it. They had high hopes for a lot more. Your Ben Thornleys, your Keith Gillespies, your Chris Caspers, your John O'Kanes. Obviously, they realised that not all of them could make it, but it wasn't just the six, it was the whole team.
Which, of course, drew the famous Alan Hansen comment, "You'll never win anything with kids," after a bit of an early season hammering, really, which suddenly made you think whether United could actually go from strength to strength or not.
From Manchester United, here goes Beckham! Brilliant!
Up until that point, free kick taking had been a sort of sketchy art. You know, some players did it, some players didn't, some players scored with free kicks now and again. But what Beckham did was he actually made free kicks like penalty kicks. If Manchester United or England got a penalty kick anywhere within the 30-yard radius of the goal, then you think it's as good as a penalty because Beckham's going to hit the net.
Suddenly, a boot manufacturer is looking at different ways to make the boot, the main wearer of those boots, with David Beckham. And I just think when you've got a boot manufacturer bringing out a whole new brand, especially on the back of your free kick taking, that tells you absolutely everything you need to know.
His standing leg could really collapse, you know, it was certainly something I couldn't do, you know.
He'd bend his ankle down, go like this, which enabled him to get under the ball and put this incredible spin on it.
And his standing foot is more or less like a twisted ankle.
His body angle would be nearly at 45 degrees and maybe even less. That would enable him to wrap his foot around the ball a little bit more, and that's why he can create that sort of heavy dip on the ball.
You would not teach a kid, you know, to take a free kick or to take a shot like that.
It's another textbook Beckham free kick.
It was unique at the time, you know. I think everyone after that started.
David Beckham scored 62 Premier League goals, but he created a whole lot more.
Sometimes we get a little bit sanitised in press boxes about how good the quality of crossing is. You really see, very close up, the ball's sort of swinging in and the curve that David Beckham puts on these balls.
I always remember speaking to Dwight York after they beat Inter Milan in the quarter-finals of the Champions League, and both of his goals that night came from David Beckham crosses. People were asking him about his goal-scoring record and his goal-scoring run. He said, listen, I couldn't do it without this guy. He's got this unbelievable knack of, I run into the penalty area and I know he can put it on a sixpence and it's going to be there. And he said, and believe me, I've played with a lot of people in my career who couldn't put it there. It's the hardest thing to do, and he seems to do it in his sleep. When you look at Ruud van Nistelrooy's stats in his prime at Manchester United, there was a couple of seasons where maybe 50% of his goals
Looking into Ruud van Nistelrooy, didn't take long, did it?
came from David Beckham, or David Beckham crosses.
Well, David Beckham, the supply line once more. And it was swept in.
Beckham could probably cross the ball 30 different ways. If you look at Beckham crossing the ball, you'll see his body, you see almost no two crosses look alike because his body twists and turns into different positions depending on where the defender is and the defender's body stance. And that allows him to deliver the same excellent cross every time. Rather than moving the defender, you move yourself. And that's why, you know, he delivers crosses from absurd angles.
He almost redefined the art of crossing the ball.
A bit more, you know, in a way, because Bobby Moore was chest out, blonde hair, bang, England, you know.
It's such a massive World Cup, and for Bex to be the man leading us there with such a great squad of players, we've got a real chance, and he must feel that inside as well, that, you know, it's the chance possibly for him to lift the World Cup.
It's been a fascinating 5 months getting to know the real David Beckham, finding out what his life is really like. Whatever fame and success has brought him, Beckham still remains passionate about the sport that has made him who he is.
I know I'm going to miss football once I finish, but I'm going to make sure that I've got things outside of football that are going to keep me busy.
He had a dream as a kid to become a professional football player. That is ultimately what his life is about. He's done something that every single kid in the world dreams of.
You know, there's so many moments in my career and so many moments in my life where I look back and I think, I wanted to play for Man United, I wanted to play at Wembley, I wanted to captain my country. It's just incredible for me to just look back and see, you know, this is what I dreamt of when I was a young kid, and, you know, whatever you think, whatever you want, them things can come true.